Hello and welcome to another Faculty Friday. Today we are going to be chatting all about psychology here at Lakehead. I'm joined by quite a few special guests, so we'll be introducing them in just a moment. First, I would like to just talk a bit about Faculty Fridays and the Lakehead International Live Series. So the Lakehead International Live Series is a daily live event at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's an opportunity and fun and informative way for you to connect with us as a future Lakehead student, ask us some really great questions, but also learn more about our programs, learn about our departments and services, and meet those faculty, staff, and current students on campus. So on Mondays, we do the Monday meetup. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do a Thunderwolf Tuesday and Thursday, and that is over on Instagram Live. On Wednesday, we do the Wednesday weekly admissions update. And last but not least, we're doing Faculty Fridays with psychology. So today I am joined, like I said, by a few special guests. I would like to note we are working remotely, so I would like to pre-apologize if you hear any odd noises that you wouldn't expect from a typical office environment. I myself, as well as I know a few of my co-hosts, have animals and dogs, so if you hear a few barks, please just ignore those, but otherwise I'll introduce myself and then pass it off to Patrick. So my name is Jordan. I am the International New and Social Media Officer here at Lakehead University. What that means is I help oversee our online presence as well as our digital recruitment efforts. And I help manage these live webinars as well as I help manage our social media channels. So I'll pass it off to Patrick now and he'll introduce himself as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Carr. I am one of the international recruitment officers here at Lakehead University. I work with students who are based in Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean, but I'm happy to be here to answer any questions for all of my colleagues who are based around the world. So look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. Next, I'll have Mirella chat about what she does here at Lakehead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Mirella Stroink. I'm the chair of the Department of Psychology here at Lakehead University. So I teach courses in social psychology, community psychology, cultural and environmental psychology, and I do research on environmental behavior and complex systems. As the chair of the department, I'm involved in promoting the programs, supporting students throughout the programs along with my colleague Jennifer. Yeah, so we're here to help you figure out if this program is for you and what it's all about. And if you do come to Lakehead, we'll help you navigate the program and your pathway through and beyond.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next, I'll pass it off to Jen to chat about what she does here at Lakehead.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Liscomb. I'm the program coordinator for the department. So I'm here to provide students with academic advising and assistance and support throughout your program. So I work closely with all students once they are in our programs to help ensure that they are successful.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we'll have Amanda join in and chat about what she does here at Lakehead.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Amanda Maranzan, and I'm an associate professor in the psychology department here at Lakehead. I'm also the director of our clinical graduate programs. So for those of you who are thinking a little bit further down the road to graduate studies in psychology, that's where I spend a lot of my time right now, supporting students in our clinical graduate programs. I do some research on the topics of mental health and stigma. And I teach some courses in the graduate program, as well as in the undergraduate program around like mental health and psychological disorders.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now that we've covered all of our special guests today, I would just like to remind our audience some of the things that you should definitely remember throughout today's session. If you like what you're seeing, don't worry, we will be uploading the recorded version to our YouTube channel. So we are on YouTube. Lakehead University is the channel. We have two dedicated playlists to international students, Lakehead International Lives and Lakehead International. So the one that you're looking for is Lakehead International Lives. And that's where all of our pre-recorded webinars are uploaded after the fact, so that if you have to head out early or if you've joined us late, you can always catch up. Of course, if you missed the webinar entirely, we still have it here. And we definitely encourage you to ask questions on that platform as well. And speaking of questions, today we're definitely here to chat with you, answer some of your concerns, questions, all that sort of stuff. If you're joining us on Zoom, I do encourage you to use the Q&A function and submit those questions via that chat. And then we would be happy to address those throughout the session today. And last but not least, I always encourage our students to stay connected with us on social media. So we are posting regularly about upcoming events, upcoming lives, new offerings, major announcements, all sorts of stuff. We're also giving a sneak peek as to what the student life here is at Lakehead. So I definitely encourage you. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, as I mentioned, and those of you joining us from China, we are on Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. So at that point, I think it's time to dive into the psychology program. So I always start off with the first general question. What are some of the key programs offered within the Department of Psychology, and at what level are they? So I'll pass it off to Mirella, and I'll have her chat about that. Unless someone else would like to jump in as well too, I encourage you to do that.
I'll try to remember that.
No.
So we offer programs at both the undergraduate and graduate levels in psychology. So I'll get Amanda to talk about the graduate programs. But the undergraduate programs, we have both Honors Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts programs. So the main decision you'd want to make if you're looking at an undergraduate program in psychology is to choose between an arts-focused program or a science-focused program. The psychology part of those programs are identical. What's different are the electives that you're taking alongside the psychology course. So again, the psychology part of the programs are the same. So what you want to do is think about whether you'd rather take electives that are more from the math and sciences, or would you rather take electives that are more English, history, sociology, and so on. And that will inform your choice. So we tell students it doesn't make a difference in terms of career trajectory, whether you take an arts or a science. You can get into medical schools and law schools from either arts or science. The issue really is which of those programs will give you the better grades based on your own particular strengths and interests. So once you've chosen between arts or science, we have a number of other programs. We generally steer students toward the honors programs, which is a 4-year program and leads to the most opportunities thereafter. Once you're in that, if you're finding that you're doing really well and you might be interested in graduate programs, we do have what's called a specialized honors program in both arts and science. And that's meant for students pursuing graduate education. So we package together the honors thesis in your 4th year along with advanced statistics and more research-focused courses. So that's the specialized honors. And then we also have a 3-year BA and BSc if you're looking for a less fulsome experience or just a quicker degree. So yeah, we also offer a minor as well if you're interested in something else, but you also want to experience some psychology, we encourage the minor too. So at the heart of all of our undergraduate programs in either arts or science is a set of foundations that we've determined is important to your knowledge base in psychology at the undergraduate level. So we build a really strong core for you in understanding the scientific method and how you use the scientific approach to thinking about people, yourself and others, people's behavior, their thoughts and feelings. So we really teach a critical and objective scientific approach to thinking about people. And that's the main foundation in psychology. You'll begin with that in your 1st year. And then from there, we build a set of content foundations in neuroscience, cognitive science, social psychology, developmental psychology, which is about how people change over time, and then individual psychology. So we build those foundations in core courses in your 2nd and 3rd year. And then from 3rd and 4th year, you have more flexibility to pursue courses that are of your interests. So we have sort of specialized and applied and advanced courses that we can talk more about in a moment. So that's the heart of the undergraduate program, and building a strong base in scientific thinking and gaining some experience in research is also at the heart of our undergraduate programs. And from there, we do offer graduate programs in both clinical psychology, which Amanda can talk about, and psychological science. So we have an MSc and a PhD program, Master of Science and a PhD program in psychological science, which is basically the research-focused part of psychology. So if you find after doing an undergraduate that you're just fascinated with how attention works, or problem solving, or social behavior, or aggression, or interpersonal relationships, and you want to know more, there's an opportunity to pursue master's and PhD studies in those areas of research and really gain some deep skills and knowledge about how to conduct research in an area of your choice. And then, of course, we also have very popular and important program in clinical psychology, which I'll get Dr. Maranzan to talk about in a moment.
Awesome, thank you so much. And before we move on to covering the grad programs, I also wanted to mention that I know with quite a few of our undergraduate programs, students can also have a major within gerontology, philosophy, women's studies. And then another very large sector is students that are pursuing their education degree as well, so they can complete both their undergrad in psychology and their undergrad in education. And then that is the pathway to becoming a teacher within Ontario and being a teacher candidate. And they get to complete both of those degrees simultaneously. So it's definitely interesting to see the structure of those programs very collaboratively work together. So I'll pass off to Dr. Amanda, and she can chat about the clinical psychology program.
Great, thank you. As Dr. Stroink mentioned, we do have two graduate studies fields, the psychological science program that Dr. Stroink talked about, which really focuses on applying the scientific method to our understanding of people's emotions, thinking, as well as behavior. And then we have the clinical psychology program, which really focuses on training students to assess, diagnose, and treat mental health related disorders. So this is our program, the clinical psychology programs, that is the pathway to practicing as a professional registered psychologist here in Ontario, as well as in other jurisdictions across Canada and the US. So students typically take courses that focus on topics like professional ethics, how to do an assessment of a mental health problem with an individual, how to engage in diagnosis. We look at clinical interviewing skills, and then of course psychotherapy skills as well. So we do have a master's as well as a PhD program in that clinical field. And as Jordan was mentioning, that in many of our programs, students can specialize in kind of additional disciplines. We do also offer that option at the master's level for both psychological science as well as clinical psychology. Students in those master's programs are able to specialize in gerontology. So if you're particularly interested in working with older adults or difficulties that older adults particularly face, there's that opportunity. And we also have a specialization in women's studies. So that's a little bit about our graduate programs.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we actually have a question from Pierre. The question is, what degree do you need to practice in Ontario? So I'm assuming the question is more along the lines of what degree do you need to graduate to be a psychologist within Ontario? So I'm not sure, I can't answer that, but I'll definitely pass it off to our team in psychology to answer that.
Yeah, so I can answer that question. Here in Ontario, in order to practice as a licensed or a registered psychologist, you need a PhD degree in clinical psychology or school psychology or counseling. Our university offers the clinical psychology degree. You can also register at the master's level if you do a master's degree in clinical psychology as a psychological associate. So I hope that answers the question. In Ontario, it's the PhD or a master's degree.
Awesome. And I think there also could be a second part of the question, just because it's a slightly unclear. For students that are interested in pursuing, for example, their Masters of Science in Clinical Psychology, what degree should they have as an undergrad to then join that program?
So that's a great question. For our clinical psychology programs, we require an undergraduate honors degree in psychology. And we really encourage students who are thinking about that track to complete an honors thesis. With the psychological science program, so that's the master's in science, a psychology degree or a related discipline is required, again, with an emphasis on the thesis component. So oftentimes we'll have applicants who don't have an undergraduate psychology degree, but perhaps they've done a neuroscience or a biology degree where they've learned a lot about like psychology applicable courses. And so they're able to apply to the MSc program.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I did get clarification from Pierre. He said that some international students have the understanding that undergraduate students within psychology are able to practice, which you were able to clarify that you do need that further education or that continuing education to then practice at the varying levels. So thank you so much for diving into that. I know that we've already touched on the subjects of specializations within gerontology, philosophy, women's studies, all that sort of stuff. And then the streams also, I know that Dr. Stroink also touched on the fact that students in the undergrad get to either do the arts stream or the science stream. So what that means is that students, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're choosing the art streams, typically need to focus their courses within the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. And if students are pursuing the science stream, they need to focus their courses within the Faculty of Science and Environmental Studies. So that kind of covers the two streams within the undergrad program. And just to clarify, I can certainly read out the specializations and the full program titles for those of you interested. So we do have, for example, the Honors Bachelor of Science with a specialized honors in psychology. And that one, I believe you said, is a great segue into that graduate level of studies. And then we have an Honors Bachelor of Arts, Gerontology and Psychology major, Honors Bachelor of Arts, Philosophy and Psychology major, Honors Bachelor of Arts, Specialized Honors in Psychology with a concentration in Women's Studies. There's certainly a lot of different options and variants to that. So I do encourage you, if you are interested in psychology as the overarching topic, but you're also looking to specialize, certainly explore our website. We have plenty of information on the offerings and the different courses that are available, the different programs that you can graduate in. If you also need to reach out and connect with us directly, we encourage you to do the same. So we do have a question: how much clinical psychology one should know for the practicals? So I'm not sure, we might need a little clarification on that question. What I'll get for that student to do, Sandra, if you could send us a more in-depth question to that, then I'm sure that we could have someone from our psychology team answer that. Or it might be one that we need to connect with you after the fact. So definitely maybe provide us with your email as well, and we'd be happy to reach out if we can address it right now. So moving on to course selection, I know that's a really popular question among students that are pursuing their degrees, and they're interested to know what courses they'll be taking in first year, what courses they'll be taking second, third, and fourth year. What are the industry relevant courses? So first we'll talk about undergraduate courses, and I'll pass it off to the respective person for that, and then we can follow up with grad courses that are industry relevant and popular among the students.
Okay, so I can start answering that for the undergraduate programs. So in first year of psychology, you really, your only psychology course is Introductory Psychology, which is a full year course. And that gives you a really deep foundation in the, like I was talking about earlier, the scientific approach. And then each of those areas of psychology, you spend a little bit of time reviewing them all. So you get a good overview of the discipline as a whole and some of the pathways that lead out of it. Along with Introductory Psychology, you'll take 4 more full credits or 8 half credits in other courses in your elective areas. So if you're in the science stream or one of the science programs, you'll take courses, as Jordan was saying, from the Faculty of Sciences and Environmental Studies. Or if you're in the arts, you'll be taking humanities and social sciences courses alongside your psychology. And this gives you a good bachelor's level foundation in the liberal arts and sciences in general and that way of thinking. In second year, we begin building the foundations in the core areas of psychology. So you'll begin with research methods, which is a half credit course, and there's a lab component to that as well. So here you get to actually play around with doing small experiments, replicating different experiments, and seeing how we control variables and determine what impacts outcomes in different ways. And then you'll begin looking at exploring different approaches to how we do research in psychology and some of the basic elementary statistics, descriptive statistics that we use. And then from there, You'll also, in the winter of your second year, take some statistics in a Statistics 1, we call it, course, which also has a lab component where you get to hands-on practice doing the statistical techniques using computer software. Also in your second year, you begin building those foundations in neuroscience, cognitive psychology and social psychology and developmental psychology. So you take a half credit in each of those, learning the basics, building on what you learned in your first year, learning the basics of how the brain works and how the brain influences behavior and mental health and well-being. And then cognitive psychology, you'll learn the basics about how the mind works, how does attention, problem solving work. Social psychology, you learn about how people interact with each other, how the presence of others, even the imagined presence of others, influences our behavior. Developmental, you choose between child or adult focused developmental, but either way you're learning about how psychological processes unfold over time. So that's your second year, along with a few more electives if you've found another discipline you really enjoy, or if you're in philosophy, double major, for example, or women's studies, you'll be picking up some of those courses too. And then in your third year, there's a few more foundations. We build on what you now know about the brain and cognition and social behavior and development to start introducing the foundations of mental health. That's a new course for us this year, and we're very excited about it. So it covers sort of the foundations of what makes us well, and how do we understand mental health and mental illness, and where do those understandings come from? So you'll take a critical approach to that in that course, or you could take personality. Either way, you're learning about individual differences and how people differ from one another and how we assess those differences and what those mean. If you're in an honors program, you'll take psychometrics, learning a bit more about how we measure differences among people, and you'll take another statistics course. And then you can start taking your other psychology electives, things you're interested in. So Jordan mentioned career relevant or cutting edge courses. So we have courses here in forensic psychology at the third year level, cultural psychology, how do people differ across cultures? How does culture influence psychological processes? We have courses in drugs and behavior, principles of psychopharmacology, so how do drugs interact with the brain? How behavioral neuroscience, so how the neurological processes influence behavior, sleep, disorders, and so on. And then in fourth year, again, you're building into more capstone or advanced level courses. So here we integrate what you've learned already, and you can apply your knowledge now more. So for example, we have a course in addictions at the fourth year level. So you can understand how addictions manifest based on what you now know about the brain and learning and cognition and social processes. We also have a course in evolutionary psychology at the fourth year level. How does sort of biological and evolutionary processes influence psychological functioning? We have community psychology where we can get some hands-on kind of experience thinking about how we implement and measure social change at the community level. And many more courses like perceptual processes, how the eye and ear take in information and how the brain processes that. So throughout your 4 years, you're building from basic foundations all the way through to more advanced and applied integrative courses at the fourth year. Yeah, I think I've answered the question for the undergraduate program, and at risk of going long, I'll let Amanda talk a bit about what goes on in the graduate courses.
Sure, great. So as Dr. Stroink mentioned, the undergraduate program at Lakehead University provides a really solid foundation for further studies in graduate school. So within the psychological science stream, that would be the MSc degree, students complete a thesis, which is really an opportunity to gain some skills and experience studying a psychology topic in further detail. And to support students in completing their thesis, there are a number of courses that students in our MSc take related to research methods. We have some courses in advanced statistics, And then quite diverse topics that can be tailored depending on the student's interest. So for example, we have a number of graduate level courses that look at kind of the biological basis of behavior. We have courses that are related to kind of social foundations and social relationships. There's some affective or kind of emotion-based courses, as well as some interpersonal-based courses. So we've got lots of variety depending on the particular topic that students are really interested in. And in the PhD in psychological science, students have the additional opportunity to engage in a research practicum. So again, further skills development with respect to research and kind of research methods in psychology. Across all of our graduate programs, students also have the opportunity to participate in a research seminar. So this is a really excellent way to get exposure to a range of topics within psychology. We have guest presentations, or oftentimes people within the department will present on their research or perhaps their clinical work. So that's a fantastic opportunity that we offer to our graduate students. So it's a little bit about the psychological science programs. Within the clinical psychology programs, I think I already mentioned the type of courses that people typically take. So at the master's level, we have courses in professional ethics, learning about assessment and diagnosis. We have courses related to psychotherapy. And students typically take courses across the 2 years of their master's degree. During that time, they're also completing a thesis, so similar to the psychological science program. And students in the clinical psychology program additionally complete a practicum. So at the master's level, students do 400 hours of practicum training. This means that they go in the community and they're supervised by another psychologist to learn some assessment, diagnosis, or treatment skills and to practice them with patients. So we've got a number of relationships with mental health providers in the community here, and that's typically where students do that type of training. And then at the PhD level, there's additional coursework that students complete. They do a dissertation, another research project. They do additional practicum training. And in the PhD, students also complete a 1-year internship, which is really an immersive experience working as a psychologist under supervision of a practicing psychologist, and an opportunity to consolidate all of the learning that they've done throughout the course of their clinical training.
Awesome, thank you so much. I know that was actually a really great segue into my next question about experiential learning opportunities and just chatting to see whether or not Lakehead has partnered with community members or external organizations to provide research opportunities. Could we clarify, are there opportunities at the undergraduate level as well within experiential learning?
At the undergraduate level, our experiential learning is really focused on building your research skills. And there's a reason for this. Not everybody thinks they're interested in research, but first of all, you might be more interested than you think. But also, when you're doing research at the undergraduate level and learning how to systematically control variables and examine effects, you're gaining the sort of thinking that a clinical psychologist uses when they're assessing and treating and diagnosing patients in a clinical setting. It's the same basic way of thinking. So it's an important skill to practice all the way through your training. And at the undergraduate level, like I said, it's really focused on gaining practical experience in research. So we have lab courses where you do hands-on experiments and you test effects. And then I should build on that by talking about how at Lakehead, one of our real advantages is that it's a relatively small program. So it's not difficult to get to know the faculty, the professors in your courses. And professors are always looking for volunteers to get involved in helping to run research projects. So one thing you can do is get involved, get to know your professors, get involved as a research assistant on a voluntary basis. We also have a research opportunity course, which is a great experiential learning opportunity where you can gain course credit working directly with a professor or their team of graduate students running the technical aspects of a research project. And it could be a lab-based project where you're looking at how people are processing sensory information, for example, in the brain, or how quickly they can respond to different problem scenarios. Or it might be a community-based research project. And we do have a number of professors who do research in the community. For example, Dr. Rawana does all of the clinical assessments with children in the school system, in the public and Catholic school system. So you would be able possibly to get involved in looking at some of the research that he gathers from his work. We have researchers who do community-based work in food systems. That's one of the things I do. So you could get involved working with activists in the food system, making social change, and you can understand the psychological processes that influence their choices or behavior. And we have people who do research that's sort of clinical and addictions and body image and eating disorders. So you could understand, get involved in some of that research as an undergraduate. And then I think Amanda has talked about the practicum that's embedded within the clinical programs. So experiential learning is at the heart of the clinical programs. Certainly from the second year of your master's and on into the PhD, you are engaging directly in different forms of assessment and practical training in the community.
Awesome, thank you so much. So that also ties into another question that I had about student research opportunities. So we've already covered that quite in depth, I would say, but if anyone of our viewers has questions related to the research opportunities or questions in general, even if it's not related to psychology, of course we have Patrick Carr here who can answer those questions as well as myself. But otherwise, I would love to chat a bit about the student clubs that are on campus for psychology students specifically. So first, there's the Psychology Association of Lakehead Students. They like to call themselves, the nickname is PALS, which is, I think, just amazing because it really shows like the connections that you're making. But PALS typically hosts workshops, mentorship opportunities, networking events, and then they also do presentations throughout the year to engage students both on campus and within their field of study. So that's just one club opportunity. I myself, as a previous Lakehead student, had been involved in attending some of their events. I was a business graduate, so I wasn't a part of that association, but that didn't stop me from attending some of their amazing events throughout the year. There's also another thing called the Psi Chi chapter. So a Psi Chi chapter is a part of an internationally recognized honor society. Members must have a GPA and they must be within the top 35% of their class across the university. And that minimum GPA is a 3.0 GPA for psychology courses. So that's a distinguished group for students that are clearly excelling within their psychology program and academically successful within the university as a whole. So there's definitely opportunity for students to get involved on campus. These are just the two clubs that are, of course, specifically related to psychology. That doesn't negate the fact that we have over 50 clubs on campus that are dedicated to hobbies, interests, culture. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Patrick, do you have any other clubs in mind that are really popular on campus? I already touched on the fact that clubs cover culture, interests, hobbies, politics. I'm just trying to blank for any other ones.
You know, there are a number of clubs on campus, and really it comes down to any special interest. So the way I always talk about clubs is that if there is an interest you want, there's likely a club for it. And if there is an interest that isn't a club, the cool thing is you can actually start your own club. LUSU funds, the Lakehead University Student Union funds all of our clubs, and to get club funding, I believe you only need 10 signatures. And so I know a few years ago, a group of students started a baking club. There were 10 of them. They wanted to bake regularly, and they got club funding to bake regularly, to make cookies and cupcakes and those kinds of things. So there are a whole bunch of great clubs. PALS, the psychology club, is one of them, but there are lots for academic interests, you know, outside of school interests, and also it kind of partners well with our athletics and campus recreation program, which is where if you're interested in, you know, playing basketball non-competitively with your friends, you can get involved there.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for adding that, and especially the fact that, like you said, if students don't have a club that's necessarily best suited for them, there's definitely an opportunity that they can start their own club and start growing it from there. So like Patrick said, all you need is just a small number of signatures. I believe it is 10, it might be 15, but either way, just a small number of signatures, and then seeing clubs grow from there is a really great on the external side, being an employee of the university and not necessarily being a part of the clubs anymore, but seeing what they're doing on campus and all the exciting events and speakers they're bringing really speaks to the experience and how they're enriching that student experience too. So the next thing I would like to chat about is a popular question among graduates and students is career opportunities. So of course you've invested so heavily in your future. You're going to be very interested to know kind of where the program leads you career-wise and what opportunities are available. So maybe I'll pass off to the psychology team to highlight some of the careers that are listed on the screen, and then if they would like to add any as well, they have all the power to them.
Okay, I'll jump in first. There's a number of different levels on which we can answer this. First of all, if you do just an undergraduate degree, let's say you finish the honors Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, and you're not going on to a master's or PhD program right away, what are some careers that you can pursue? Well, there's a lot, actually. We have, psychology provides a number of transferable skills that you may not even realize you're developing. So research methods, critical thinking, writing, evaluation and scientific analysis, communication, and a really good understanding of how people think, feel, and act, which is useful in so many different ways. So for example, Jordan even mentioned business, and people don't always think about that, but one of our third-year courses is actually in industrial organizational psychology. So that is everything about the interface between understanding how people think and business. So sales and marketing, human resources, how organizational systems flow, and how it's called ergonomics. So how well does the business structure interact with psychological processes? So there's a lot of careers there, but also everything in social services. So working with people and in addictions environment or a social services environment or a healthcare environment, you're very well prepared. But also research-oriented positions, policy analysis, program evaluation. We have a number of students who go from the undergraduate program into corrections, so working in sort of a forensic environment with police services or corrections. And then, of course, you can also pursue additional education before going into a master's, or if you choose not to go into a master's in psychology, there's other post-graduate programs you can pursue, like social work. They have an HBSW or MSW program that you can get from your psychology foundation. You can go on into physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language pathology. Those are popular pathways. So there are a number of programs like that that you can pursue. Occupational therapy I see is on there. And then you could also go on into, the colleges often offer postgraduate programs as well. So after your Bachelor of Arts or Science in Psychology, you could go on and do a program there, like a one-year program that gives you some technical skills to maybe run group therapy sessions with people with addictions. So you're not operating at the level of a clinical psychologist, but you're hands-on doing the work of supporting people in the community. And so there's a lot of opportunities just from your undergraduate degree in psychology. And then if you do go on and to pursue a master's or PhD in psychology, whether that's clinical or psychological science, of course, there are many other career pathways for you as well. So I'll pass that on to Amanda.
Yeah, great, thank you. Well, I think we've already had a few questions about the clinical psychology pathway. And so just to remind people that that is the pathway for getting a professional license in Ontario, as well as other provinces or territories across Canada. So our graduates from the clinical psychology program typically go on to work in a professional role at a mental health facility, whether it's a hospital, or a community mental health organization. We also have a number of graduates from our clinical as well as the psychological science program that go on to work in academia or more kind of research-focused positions. And I would say for psychological science, it's a really great opportunity to fine-tune and build upon those skills that Dr. Stroink talked about at the undergraduate level. So additional skills in terms of data analysis, critical thinking. You get lots of opportunities to do oral presentations and practice your research, your writing skills. And these are all really sought after transferable skills to the majority of jobs that are available today. Just before I end, I just wanted to quickly mention that on our departmental website, psychology.lakeheadu.ca, we do have a link that talks a little bit more about career opportunities. And there's a lot of national organizations that are listed there that have pages specifically about this question: what career can I have with an undergraduate degree in psychology or a graduate degree? So that could be a great place for some additional resources if you're interested.
Awesome, thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind actually just typing that in the chat there, Amanda. So if you make sure the message sends to all attendees and all panelists, you can just drop that URL link to the website. And like she was saying, if you are on the website and you want to explore further career opportunities, there are resources available. Otherwise, we'll move into my last topic of the day. So we've covered so much already. We've covered the paths within the programs, the experiential learning opportunities, the student research opportunities, the student experiences, so the clubs and the on-campus environment. But then of course, so now that you've completed your first degree here at Lakehead, there's lots of questions that arise whether you want to continue education. And so continuing education during further schooling, additional learning opportunities. Maybe I'll pass it off to the psychology team to talk about where we typically see our graduates go to continue their education. So are they going into medical schools? Are they going into law schools? I'll pass it off to them to cover for sure.
Thank you. So that's a great question. So often, we've already talked about the master's programs in psychology. There are also counseling psychology programs at the master's level that we don't offer at Lakehead, but there are some out there, and an undergraduate degree is a great preparation for that. We also see many students going on to medical school from either the HBA or the HBSC. With a medical school pathway, it's really important that your marks are extremely high and that you are engaging in volunteer experiences and demonstrating that you're a well-rounded person. And there are opportunities for all of those things within psychology. Conducting an honors thesis is also important for most of these sort of higher level postgraduate programs. Medicine, another one is law. We have a lot of students who pursue law school following their undergraduate in psychology. So that's another great pathway. Again, you're learning about how people think, and you're also learning a scientific and objective critical way of thinking. So that's, again, some of the roots, I think, of law as well as medicine. But other further studies that you can pursue, I've mentioned already social work, and then there's physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language, and then there's the postgraduate college programs as well. Also business, we have people who pursue MBAs in business following some amount of undergraduate study in psychology. So if you're just still thinking about pursuing a bachelor's degree, I would encourage you to take Introduction to Psychology, no matter what major you actually end up choosing. It's a great introduction, and it provides that overview that you can use in any discipline to understand how people think. And then you might get pulled in. So we might end up getting you to do a minor in psychology, or maybe you'll even choose a major. We do have students who join us after a year or two in another program because I think that they discover what psychology is following their exposure in introductory psychology, and they decide that it's for them. Yes, there's a lot of different opportunities for further education. Another one I think I've forgotten to mention is education. So as Jordan mentioned at the beginning, you can do a concurrent education degree with an undergraduate in psychology, either in primary junior, which is up to grade 8 in the elementary system, or you can do intermediate senior and you can become a high school teacher through the concurrent education program with psychology. And we always argue that a psychology foundation is really important to teachers in elementary or secondary education, just understanding how do children learn, how do they develop, and what sort of factors influence them, I think is so important in teachers. So that is another great pathway to pursue. And then from there, if you're more interested in the guidance counseling side of education, a psychology background is great for that as well. And then once you're in education, there are ways to get more focused on the counseling side of it. Just before we jump on to something else, though, I wanted to highlight one of the unique aspects of our program is that we have Jennifer Liscomb, our program coordinator, who works with us. And being the size that we are, we're big enough that you have lots of opportunities. We have graduate programs, so you can see what that's all about. But we're also small enough that we can get to know you. And Jennifer does a lot of work for us in advising and supporting students throughout the program. So if you join us and you're not sure what courses to take, Jen's your person. So Jennifer, if you're there, I'm going to get you to pop on and maybe say any words that you might have about the work that you do and how you support students and anything that we might have missed so far.
Sure, thank you. So I'm here to provide students with advising, so whether that's picking your courses or working through what program is right for you, or working through and navigating the systems at the university as a whole. I'm here to support students both at the undergrad and grad level. So oftentimes I get to know our students very well through our undergrad program and see them through to their grad programs. I also work with our community partners to try to provide our students with other engagement and volunteer opportunities in our larger community and not just at LU, as well as at LU and through our department. So I'm continuously working with our university and our community to try to provide great experiences for our students. And I am here to answer any questions, whether it be specific program questions or questions about your experiences at the university as a whole. So we really do get to know our students in the department and really work to see them succeed and help them wherever we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. I think that we covered a lot of ground. We definitely dove into the programs, chatted about all the different opportunities. I think that you covered some of the research topics and just how involved our students can get with our faculty and staff members and the support services that we are providing and the connections that we're making with our current students. Just to reiterate and echo what you've been saying, being a smaller campus community, of course, we always encourage students to connect with our faculty and staff, and we want to get to know our students on a first name basis. Instead of knowing them by their number, their student ID, we want to be able to say hi to you in the hallway. We want to be able to make that connection so that if you do have questions about your courses, if you do need assistance, if you're just looking for guidance from one of us, you can approach us and feel comfortable to do so. And I think that just chatting with the three of our guests today should give you a definitely good idea of how willing we are to support our students and how friendly these three guests have been today. Covering some of the wrap up today, I will definitely chat about social media and following us. So staying connected. We are on Facebook, like I mentioned, Lakehead University International. Something that's not listed on here, but I can certainly share with you is that we do have a Facebook group called the Incoming Class of 2020. We are at over 200 students on that group already, and great conversations are happening where students are meeting friends and future Lakehead graduates in their hometown, back in their home country. They're also meeting potential roommates, meeting future classmates. All those sort of conversations are already happening. And the group is still relatively small because it is pretty new, but of course we'll see that can continue to grow over the next few months as we ramp up for the fall 2020 cycle. We are on Instagram, Lakehead International, and like I mentioned before, every Tuesday and Thursday we go live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to meet a current student. Touching on that, I actually wanted to mention that last week or 2 weeks ago, it's a little bit of a blur because I'm online every day. We did meet with Ritwick, who is a second-year psychology student going into his third year And he chatted all about his student experience, his research opportunities with Dr. Tan within the Department of Psychology. And his session was amazing. He really covered on how he's preparing to apply to medical school in, I believe, in the next year or two now, I guess. And also what he's been involved in, how he stays active within the campus community. This Tuesday, we're also going to be meeting a first-year psychology student. Her name is Ashley. She's from India. And she's going to dive into psychology, but then we're also going to certainly dive into her experience of living on campus. So she's lived on residence in campus, and we definitely want to touch on that as well. Last few mentions, we do have a Twitter account, Lakehead INTL, and we're also on YouTube, Lakehead University. Like I mentioned, there's 2 playlists dedicated to international audiences. The first is Lakehead International, and that is a general playlist for all videos with testimonials, general information, that sort of stuff. And then there's the Lakehead International Lives playlist, where webinars such as these, Monday meetups, Wednesday weeklies, Faculty Fridays, Thunderwolf Tuesdays and Thursdays, all the recordings are actually uploaded to that playlist on our YouTube channel. For those of you joining us in China, we do have a Weibo, WeChat, and Youku, and you can find similar material on there to learn more about Lakehead, and many of those posts and videos are actually translated into Mandarin, so it is, of course, accessible for you. And last but not least, we totally understand that making that decision and taking that next step to choose a university, a very important part is exploring what the facilities look like, what the campus is like, what the surrounding environment is like. And we certainly encourage you to take a virtual campus tour, because we think that once you see where we're located and how beautiful it is here, you'll also fall in love just like we have. So all you have to do is visit lakeheadu.ca/tours, and you can do the tour at the comfort of your own home, within the comfort of your own home, I should say, and on your own schedule and on your own pace too. There's no set appointments. All you have to do is go to that website, start the virtual tour, and do it at your own pace. So you can explore a few buildings a day. You can do it all at once, totally up to you. Last but not least, I do want to give one more special thank you to our 3 special guests today. I really appreciate you joining us and diving into the program. I think that we covered a lot of ground. I think today's session was one of our best for sure, and I certainly hope that our audience members got some great insight as to the psychology program, the department offerings, all that sort of stuff. If you do have any more questions for us, though, of course, reach out to us. Our email is at the bottom of the screen, welcome@lakeheadu.ca. We'd be happy to answer any Lakehead-related questions. If the international department can't necessarily answer it, we will certainly connect you to the proper person or team at Lakehead. Otherwise, I will wrap it up here, and thank you again for joining us.